Welcome everybody. It's been a hot minute since we've been on the podcast here, but we have joining us Jesse Calvin with Realty One Mountain Desert Realty joining us today. Jesse, I'm super excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. And so, well, I always figure it's great to get started and kind of getting to know. I always like to find how people, you and I've discussed this a little bit before, but how people found real estate. And within that conversation, I just think it's so, I mean, you'll tell us a little bit about yourself here as well. I just think it's fun to find the human stories in real estate because can be a tough market and it's all about prices and rates and, the reality of 2024 here. But to be able to find that human aspect in it and then how we can trudge forward in this. But yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Jesse.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love the deal. I love real estate, but it's ultimately about the people, right? So, so I got started in real estate about 4 years ago. A little bit more. It was August of 2020, right? Okay. So, when the world was kind of shut down,
mic there, yeah.
When the world was kind of shut down, it was a good time to get my license and get into real estate. So, 4 years ago, got my license, hung it with Realty One Group Mountain Desert, same brokerage I'm with right now. I joined a team, which was, in hindsight, a great decision. And on that team, we were selling new home builds. And again, another blessing looking back at it, right? There wasn't a lot of inventory, houses were flying off the shelf. And so I didn't have a lot of experience. And so to be able to just kind of sit floor, and I had a lot of time and not a lot of marketing, not a big marketing budget. It was nice to just be able to sit floor at new home builds, and that's kind of where I got my start. Did new home builds for a year until those kind of ran out, and then I transitioned into resale. So it's been about 3 years in resale, which of course a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you came from competitive cycling, right?
Right. So before I got into,
call it cycling or biking?
Mountain biking, whatever you want to call it.
Because it was mountain biking. It wasn't actually like correct cycling. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was specifically mountain biking, which is my favorite type of, bike riding, so to speak. So yeah, I came from that. In my 20s, when I was going to NAU, I decided, I got into mountain biking kind of later on in life. I'd ridden bikes my entire life, but it really took a hold of me, and I was pretty decent at it. So I was like, you know what, let's try to do this racing thing.
Remember, were you doing like cross country or enduro, or what were you doing?
So it started out a little bit of everything. It was cross country, it was enduro. I shouldn't say a little bit of everything. It was mainly that. It was mainly like just mountain biking, all different types of mountain biking discipline, no road riding. And so then I just competed. I started competing, in mountain biking, and it was a fun time. And as I got a little bit older, my priorities slightly changed. I was dating my wife for a while, and then we decided we wanted to settle down and have a family and adult, so to speak. And so, priorities changed. And then with that, getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, I kind of reverse engineered the life that I wanted, and real estate fit the mold. So I knew that I wanted flexibility, so I could race, right? Like I thought I was going to have this I thought I was going to have this life where I could just race and then also make a lot of money and whatnot. So things changed. So I'm not sure how far off the question or the question
for sure. Yeah. Well, so and I find that awesome that when you talk through that competitive background, very much speaks into. I'm a very competitive person. Like I find it. I'm pretty adaptive. Hopefully Brooks here producing for us doesn't see that come out in the office too much. But I like to succeed, and I like to. I'll have to send you this other YouTube clip that I was sharing with my kids. I'll just say, I think I scare people sometimes because I'll send them motivational clips all the time of just like that mindset of we don't clock in, you work to win.
Sure.
Right. And it's a matter of, and it's a certain particular mindset that I think serves our clients very, very well to say like, I won't just, try,
right,
but I will do what is necessary to help you succeed.
Right.
And that's, talk about this last market, right? We can get into that a little bit.
Well, yeah, the past, 4 years or so. I mean, since I've been in this, it's kind of, you've had to really adapt to make sure you're getting to the finish line.
So talk through that then, because when you joined and it's like, you know, your new build, things are flying off the shelves, you know, it's just like, it was the time of the salmon of Capistrano for anyone that, you know, the whole Dumb and Dumber quote there, just like, you know, the salmon were running kind of thing, like real estate was moving for everybody, right? If you were buying, if you were selling, if you were a real estate mortgage, like things were just, there was a high transactional volume. And then all of a sudden we see this shift happening. So how has that played out for you?
So it's just been learning and adapting the past 4 years, right? Because the market's changed so much. In the beginning, you know, when I got into real estate, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. People are going to be buying and selling houses. Rates are super low, you know. And I think I was still so kind of early in my real estate career that I wasn't able to catch all those salmon, right? It was just so much going on. I saw people around me just doing crazy amount of deals, which is cool to see. And it was really motivating. So in the beginning, it was, of course, like I said, the first year, so 2020, 2021 was new home sales almost exclusively, right? I wasn't doing any resale. I might have done like one resale transaction the first year.
You weren't used to selling used homes.
No, I wasn't. Yeah. So I had like I knew the contract exactly. It was a specific paperwork for new homes, and it was just quite a bit different. And so I learned that. It was great. And then, you know, things have changed quite a bit, right? You know, with interest rates going, you know, having, you know, increasing the most they have in such a short period of time, in such a long time. And so it's just been an adapting process the past few years. It hasn't been, you know, we're kind of seeing a stable market now, right? And I hadn't seen that before. So, hopefully that answers the question.
Well, and I guess really pointed on it too is there's, and I'm gonna continue to draw off of your background here.
Sure.
Is there's people that are coachable and people that are not.
Right. And
that's a very critical factor when someone's trying to succeed. And it's very interesting for me where I've talked to buyers, and my partners talk to sellers that are coachable and some that are not. And when we see a lot of dynamic, it's hilarious to me. And this is just human nature. I do mortgages, right? I'm not a psychologist, but it's fascinating to me where people get advice from. Like I always have this like husbands, brothers, sisters, cousins, uncle, right? Somehow, you know, that people will put stock in certain opinions or websites or talking head or YouTube channel. And right now that's the scariest thing to me, because I think when there's uncertainty, there's a lot of opportunism, and that opportunism is like, when you have, and this is something I've talked about, and this reminds me, this is a theme that was big for me about 4 years ago as we were getting into just so much shift in market. I was having to just say, hey, like everybody out there, look at the motivation of where the information is coming from. Information, all information comes with motivation. So what is that motivation? And when you can get to the honesty of some of that, it's kind of really scary, right? It's like, hey, you're listening to your friend, and your friend's just, you know, it's that crab, you know, bucket concept. You know that where you put a crab in a bucket?
Oh, right.
It will only pull. You don't have to put
you
a top
slowly
lid on
boil
it.
them. Yeah, right.
No, not the frog.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the frog. Sorry.
So this is the crab where you don't have to put a lid on the bucket with crabs. That if you put a bunch of crabs together, they will pull each other back in. So you don't have to put a lid on the bucket.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm not a crab fisherman, but that's the analogy, right? So that's the idea. It's like, if you want to do something great and hard and everyone's like, oh my gosh, houses are so expensive, or this is like this, you shouldn't do that, or different things, like, what's the motivation of that friend?
Right.
It's because they don't want you to succeed, right? Or surpass them, you know, not that we're keeping up with the Joneses. Or is it the, you know, the YouTube person that you jump on and they're telling you like, housing's going to crash 2025, it's coming. Here's my chart and graph that says this is totally legitimately happening.
Sure.
And then you get to the end, it's like, here's my merch and my t-shirts, and like, buy my course. And you're like, okay.
Right.
What are you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's why it's so important for us to be the trusted advisor, right?
Yeah.
It's just so important for us to be the, you know, the kind of the guiding force when it comes to a buyer or seller's decision-making, because, you know, going back to what you said a second ago, you're not a psychologist. You're not a trained psychologist, but I'm sure you go through those kind of conversations with some clients. We've had clients together that have, you know, I'm sure we've kind of blurred those lines, but you have to kind of reel them in and then bring it back to the facts and kind of try to take away the emotional. And buying or selling a home is so emotional, right? As it should be, but just making sure that the emotions or the decisions you're making, while they are emotional, are just backed by facts. I think it's really important.
And so let's get back to that coaching analogy with it. I'll ground some pieces of this conversation here because my daughter is she's advancing in her sport and getting more coaching, and she gets emotional, right? And I think it's so important where I'm like, hey, honey, it's a very important skill for you to be able to detach, for you to be able to take feedback, and to be able to not that you think you did it great or something, but to adapt.
Sure.
Right. So if you had to so here's the, gloves off talking to buyers right now.
Right.
Cause I think, again, we have to have, and everyone fully disclaimer, we have so much empathy for the market where, my honest line to anyone is this sure, if you bought a home in the last decade, it was easier.
Right.
I don't fault that, right? We had this golden era. It really was not just through 2022 or whatever with the 3% interest rates. It really was from the bubble burst through that point where prices and rates were in this historically affordable time.
Right.
And then so when we start to see quote unquote kind of normal or higher, or I should say less, when I talk about affordable index, it gets me confused on that, but less affordable timeframes or higher cost timeframes, when we just put that to the backdrop of this historically affordable market, it hurts really, really bad.
Right. Well, the past is always going to be affordable, for the most part compared to now, right? The best time to buy was sometime
Apple stock in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or in the 80s. Right. And so it's saying those times past. But so again, with full disclaimer and empathy and hey, we get it. What would you say to buyers though right now when it's hey, let's detach the emotions, dust off 2025. Sure. What kind of direction are you coaching people?
Yeah, great question. And I was going to lead it into this kind of direction where right now specifically is a time where I think buyers are holding off and they're we're going to wait for whatever reason. There's so much, there's so much noise and so many distractions in the world right now. For agents as well, but for buyers also, right? And there's the seasonality aspect where it's of course it's time to start thinking about holidays and people are focused on that. We have this, the winter is not, people aren't as excited to go out and view properties, so to speak, or they want to kind of stay hunkered in their house before selling it and wait until next year. And so with my buyers, it's yes, there's a seasonality aspect when it comes to inventory. There's a little bit less inventory. Of course, there's a significant amount less inventory than there was, say the middle of the summer. But if the property is there and you're ready to buy, right now is a great time for a buyer to buy because there's less competition. Sellers want to get to their properties before the winter. And so, I would never suggest purchasing a home, right? But I think right now is a better time than any to stay on top of it. Keep looking at the market daily, and if the property is there that you like and the numbers, and you're ready to pull the trigger, right now is a great time. I think of course we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but going into the next year, we're going to start seeing rates probably continuing to slowly come down, and of course you can shed more light than I can on that, right? But so as we see rates start coming down, I think it's probably a good time to buy now before we see more people come out of the woodworks to start purchasing and take advantage of some of those rate buy downs. And
yeah, I love that, and I think I really love the kind of choose your own adventure, right? Where I fully agree with what you're saying there in saying I think most people, given the opportunity, would say, no, I would choose to buy now. Right. And I'm saying that in the context of, okay, let me give you your options, right? It's because you have children.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Too, right?
I'm in the trenches, yeah.
Yep. What are their ages again?
1 and 2.5.
1 and 2.5. Yeah. So you are in, especially more so with the 2.5-year-old, in the...
Before the kids, I would have thought I would have been the opposite, but the 2.5-year-old is...
Yeah, a lot of work.
It's fun, but
but you give it, but it's and so with having to explain, you have I was just with my 5-year-old now. 5-year-old, he was he's I'm not going to bed until I find my Nintendo Switch. And I was no, you're going to bed.
Yeah.
And then and so it was this battle, and then I have to tell him, okay, you want to play with your friend tomorrow? You go to bed now. You play with your friend. You don't go to bed now, you don't play with your friend. Like, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too here.
Right.
And so that's where I think, as young as a 2.5-year-old or 5-year-old have to understand, okay, you pick your choice, you don't pick your consequence. And I think it's very much where I'd agree with you as far as what we're seeing of saying, hey, rates did take a little bit of a pause, right? They pushed up a little bit we're heading a really good track there from July through September, pushed up a little bit. And right now, what do you get? What do you get in the market? You have potential negotiation.
Most definitely.
You have time, which people don't understand the value of that. And the time for it, if a house is sitting on the market, if there's time to negotiate, if there's time to compare other properties, if there's time to then deal with a contingency, if there's time, opens up a lot of doors for people, when it's like, hey, you're relocating here, you have time to then maybe compare that house for a couple weeks because it might not be gone. Right. So time affords a lot of things for people, right?
Yeah, most definitely. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, what it was like, a few years ago, kind of how the market's changed since I got into it just 4 years ago. Of course that, 2020, 2021, you didn't have time. It's like you made an offer above asking price and it had to be the cleanest offer, no contingencies. But now you're able to have contingencies, and, we'll see a house being contingent on another property being sold. It's like we're seeing a lot more. You're able to be more creative with the offers and the deals now than I think you were in the past, which is one of the bigger differences I've seen in the past few years. Is now we can get more creative with the terms of the contract.
And within that creativity, as we step on each other's toes in each other's areas here, but concessions, helping with costs, creativity on utilizing some of those things for like rate buy downs and some creativities with that, which I think is so underutilized in this market, that's not a word, understood. I wouldn't say misunderstood. It's just not awareness. It's about awareness with that. And so you have, and we kind of know these rules to the game. And I say it was I get faulted a lot of times for calling it a game of real estate. Cause again, I know this is people's lives and livelihood and their net worth and their investment, but I try not to take life too seriously either, but to basically say, hey, this is how the market conditions have been for some time. So the seller kind of knows what to expect because he's talking to his neighbor on what happened with their transaction, and his realtor's kind of telling him what to expect. And then, so it's kind of like, hey, we kind of are in this, even though, we're highly adaptive as human beings as we come into this market, like rip roaring for the last, just a short 24 months, really. I think it's taken all of like 12 to 18 months for us to kind of feel out what's going on.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think you have this then like, time and space where everyone's closer to the same page than we've been in a long time. And then all of a sudden, so that's where it's like, but the downsides are you're going to have to buy with a higher interest rate and you're going to have to bank on refinancing, right? Or we're going to qualify you at the current rate. You're not going to lose foreclose on the home, right? You just have to be strategically planned to get into that lower rate down the road. I think that's the only, that, and then you're going to have to deal with the winter inventory,
of course,
right? Which is going to be a little less. But those are the two downsides I'd see. Do you see any downsides to that buy now kind of mindset? As we talk about, pros and cons.
What do you mean by buy now mindset?
Like, so to say, hey, buy the house now before rates get too low or something. Any other downsides, right? Again, you can deal with the higher interest rate.
So this goes, So, I think it's always worth, I'm always going to advise my clients, like, my buyers, only buy the house you can afford, right? Never stretch yourself too thin. And so that would be one downside, is if they were to buy more house and they could afford, hoping that in the next 1-2 years they can refinance. So if you can afford that payments now, you're happy with the decision now, and assuming things didn't change, I don't see much of a downside.
Yeah.
Of course, but something crazy happening with the market, which we can never predict.
The black swan. I wasn't going to the black swans.
Right.
So we are very much into real estate. We love real estate. My wife has been like, what's the risk? And I was like, oh man, forest fire burns everything to the ground, or nuclear holocaust. Like, so pretty much we're should be good. But yeah, can't control everything. So then if we talk about, so let's say that folks are like, well, I really want that lower rate. I really want that lower payment. Yeah. So I want to wait, and there's a lot of folks that take like that one data point of, rate, contributing to payment, contributing to me needing to wait because they hear us also, which is great, or they, rates should be reducing. And they have historically, we are following right along that path. Right? Inflation goes up. Fed funds rate goes up. mortgage rates go up. Mortgage rates go up first, and then Fed funds rate goes up. And then slowly all those pieces start to come down, with rates being kind of the last piece to follow. Yeah. As you say, the rate of inflation, we'll talk about that here as well. So again, we anticipate rates coming down. So if folks are thinking, hey, whether that's, whether it really kicks, there's a lot of data to support that, really more of the February, March, that we could see more, that next step down in inflation that could be very positive for interest rates. Sure. So we might see, my best guesstimates is we'll see maybe a pretty calm rate market until then. So not a lot of, ups or downs. Right. So once we get to that point though, of a low enough interest rate that it's starting to grab the attention of people, but the attention of everybody, what are the pros and cons you project in that situation?
When the rates start coming down? Well, real quick, I want to touch on something, because I think you kind of asked it, maybe you might have asked the question. But anyways, so going back to, we've discussed how prices, there's more negotiating room right now. And so you can negotiate those concessions to buy rates down. And so if someone's like, I'm just gonna wait till rates come down. Well, it's like, we have to understand that a lot of times that rates and the purchase prices are inversely correlated. And so because people are buying monthly payments more than they're buying the purchase price. And so if you can buy a house, at a lower price with a higher rate, but you can buy down that rate because you negotiated concessions, that's kind of having the best of both worlds, right?
Absolutely.
Again, going back to if in 2 years or whenever that rate buy down, comes back to the normal rates, adjust back to that you can afford the payment. That's extremely important. But so I just want to touch on that real quick.
No, absolutely.
Because that's what I would tell buyers right now, is I think it's right now is a good time, because you can have a lower rate, and
you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. Although you're taking, it's some calculated, educated,
right?
I wouldn't say risk, because again, you're qualifying for the full payment, but you're going to be able to, take some.
Of course, without a doubt. Yeah, it can't be an extreme amount. And also, this is for people who are financing their purchases, right? Cash buyers. They have their own,
exactly.
Their own benefit. So we won't talk about the cash buyers. But so in a few months, you said, assuming that rates come down, pros and cons. For sellers, pros are, people are probably going to be able to start affording more house, and so you can sell for more money. And then cons would be for buyers, the houses might be more expensive. And then you might have more competition. So
and
but with that being said, if you can get more for your house, there's a good chance that there's going to be more sellers out there willing to sell a house. So the inventory could also go up.
So there's some positives, right? So a little bit more inventory possibly. The move-up buyer, we've talked about this a lot. The move-up buyer has been largely absent and non-participant because of their lower locked-in rates.
Right.
And so that's where I think as we see opportunity. I see that opportunity in that 600 to up to maybe about $1 million, would you say, is a pretty negotiable market
in our situations? In our market.
In our market. Well, in Flagstaff, because I'm saying very specifically, that's kind of that move up market.
Right.
Tends to move because you have that $1 million plus, that person doesn't feel inflation or something, and that's even cash buyer. That's that. I haven't seen as much maybe opportunity on that market, and of course, 500 and under is always everyone's. That you have too much cross section of demand, right? It's your investors, your first time home buyers, everyone in their second home buyers.
Yeah, specifically for single family and
maybe
maybe some townhouses, I think there's not as much room for negotiations. Of course, if you have like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo, that's for, you know, whatever. There might be some room for negotiation.
Sure. So yeah, so definitely not blanket statements.
There's little, exactly.
Definitely some niches there.
Right.
But that's where I think as we see that move up buyer start to thaw. We've talked about this before. Like statistically speaking, it's about 30% of buyers homeowners. Let me make sure I say this right. About 30% of homeowners have an interest rate that above 4.
What was the percentage?
About 30%.
Okay.
And
above
so
4.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so as we start to see rates get, we pushed, we were in the nice low 6s, but we pushed a little bit into like the high 6s, low 7s on a 30-year fixed conventional mortgage, ballpark APRs there. But that's where as we see things start to get to the 5s and the right meaningfully into the 5s, that puts people, a large portion of the population, either at or within 1% of the rate they already have.
Sure. Right.
So you'll see a lot more of that move up mentality, right? Because that gap is now, different. And that's that normal cycle where we did this. I actually saw this old presentation I'd done in one of our real estate presentations where we were, and I played like the circle of life, the Lion King circle of life. And we're talking about like, people buy, they expand like family or whatever, and then they sell, and it was just like, no, but now there's like circle of life falls off, right? Because like this whole healthy circle of life in real estate, because of the massive shift and fast shift of market terms,
right,
like destroyed that cycle of life, right? Or circle of life there. So you didn't have that natural move up where all of a sudden someone could buy that entry level home because that family had expanded, or mom moved in with them and they bought something else. And like, so that getting back to that circle of life, and this is a long explanation to agree with you, like we'll see some more inventory, right? I think we'll see a little bit more inventory available. But I think the demand factor is just it. I really think that is, and I'm not trying to be like alarmist with anything, but I think that is a massive, massive factor that that people need to take into consideration. Have you looked at some of the charts as far as like anticipated homeowner demand, like population?
I don't know. Possibly.
I gotta share those charts with you, Jesse.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, to the extent that we have, and a lot of this and this is a talking point that I've been sharing for like, and experts that I tune into have been sharing, and so I'm pushing that out as far as like right now the median home buyer age is actually raised a little bit. It's 38 years old.
Okay,
is the median home buyer age, but that's still about the middle of the millennial wave, sure, and that millennial generation, and then each population, or for the next, I think 3 or 4 years, we have higher number of 38-year-olds coming to the market than the one previous. So it's still this increasing wave. And just in that metric alone of just saying there is again, the prime home buyer age that we're seeing, statistically here has more and more population coming to market over the next 3 to 4 years. It starts to taper from there, but still massively higher historically than we've seen in 50 years.
Yeah, right. And so I have my own opinions about this.
Yeah,
but
so please.
Where do you think these buyers are going to go? Do you think they're going to be kind of going towards apartments, condos, smaller dwellings, or do you think they're going to go further outside of cities in more rural areas?
That's an excellent question.
Specifically for those 30s, the people who are in, maybe in their late 30s.
So now we get into all sorts of areas we're not experts in, of like
or just in general. I was just curious.
What is that? What's the name of that? Like urban development here, and city planning. To where, I mean, if I had to say here in Flagstaff, and that's where, and so I think as we talk through this, this comes to some pointed advice pieces instead of me just like talking out of like totally purely hypothetical.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
I don't know. I'm going to form an opinion of something I've never really, well, not never I thought, but. We are very, very unique here in Flagstaff, where the population values different things. And that's where I think when we have a general thing, people that live here that are going to afford here, love certain aspects of Northern Arizona. I mean, everyone's like, thank you. Did you get a degree to say that? Right. So they love certain aspects here. So it's like Captain Obvious right now.
Well, yeah.
But to maybe get to your point a little more quickly here is that I do think that we will continue to see people that value that downtown feel. For the same reason you have expensive New York downtown real estate kind of thing. People that want like what we got like $700,000, $800,000 condos now in downtown, right? People that value, hey, I want to be able to walk to the bars are going to pay for it. And that price point is going to continue to evolve. And then that's where that urban sprawl that occurs everywhere else is a matter of like, and I tell friends all the time, like if we visit my family's down in Mesa, Arizona, and we'll drive like 30, 40 minutes to go to dinner, right? Because, hey, there's this awesome restaurant down in Chandler or whatever. Like, let's go.
Pretty common down there, yeah.
Common. Mm-hmm. Here, you're like 30 minutes. Like, where are you going? Are you going down to Sedona for dinner? Right? Not a bad idea. But that infill, and I have no background to be talking about what's all the developable real estate in those areas. But I definitely think we're going to see a normalized longer commute. And that's something that just is a maturity step that Flagstaff in Northern Arizona is going to have to go through.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so many different types of buyers or just homeowners in general in Flagstaff, different demographics, whether it's like the young professional or, of course, the college student who might be renting or someone who might have retired and kind of want some more space. So I think it's really nuanced. It's not.
And I would go so far as to say, so again, now jumping back to our coachable theme, if I was coaching someone through this, and I tried to do this as well, of being able to say, you just have to be very, very honest with what you want. Right. If someone's saying like, hey, I want an acre and I want, and this is, I want an acre, I want a single family home, I want a 3-2, and I want under this price point. And then when they then say, and I want, within these 4 square mile block, find it for me, Jesse. It's like
for 400,000.
You give me an impossible task, right? Let's find out what you really need and why you really feel you need that. Because we have to delineate between needs, wants, and wishes. And when we find like, hey, you could get a 1 acre lot, like newer, like move-in ready home, like, but now add 30, 40-minute commute or something into this. And is that going to like break the deal for you? Are you okay? It's everything. And I'm telling you everything. I've been doing the real estate for over 16 years here in Flagstaff. And then you look at and say, hey, whether you're a $2 million buyer or a 200,000, you could maybe find something for 200,000 in Northern Arizona, broader Northern Arizona, it's trade-offs.
Right.
And I think too many people, and not now everyone's going to cancel us here when you're like social media, but honestly said, people watching and looking and like, oh my gosh, these beautiful homes, and people wanting what their parents had and thinking they can get that out the gate, but not knowing like, hey, start small, start somewhere, build that equity. And it's so rewarding for me to see when people are real. Like I've had some people that are just real and just saying, hey, we know this isn't our forever home. This is going to be great. And it's going to appreciate. And it's, instead of us just complaining that we can't buy the beautiful, beautiful home, we got a great home that we can, we'll do some weekends and Home Depot projects and, and great. And then when, 3, 4, 5 years roll around and that, had another kid or we want to get closer to town or a school district, guess what? You're rolling 6-figure equity into the next deal instead of your friends that just kept renting. Because they're waiting for like somehow the Joanne Gaines home to be like affordable. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Do you run into that a lot?
Of course. I have these conversations all the time. People who are buying their first home, like, I want to find my forever home. And it's like, you have so many things are going to change.
Oh, yeah.
This is a stepping stone.
Back into biking, too, because I was like, man, I want to get...
Hey, I'll talk about biking as much
I want to get a really nice bike that I'm going to have for a long time. And that Specialized Hard Rock with the black matte paint and the tribal tattoo kind of paint job that Specialized did back in 2009. Thought that thing would last me forever. It did a lot of things for me though, and got a lot of mileage out of it. But it's not to get too far off track here, but yeah, it's just a matter of just knowing that, hey, life changes, and
your interests change as well. Like maybe you want to leave Flagstaff for a few years, and who knows what's going to come. Like maybe you're going to start a family. The family's going to grow. Maybe you want some space in your backyard to build dirt jumps or something. Who knows?
Exactly. I love it. So I think just if it was that simple of like understand, and maybe it's just that simple. Is it, Jesse? To where if for any buyer right now. And if you listen to all this and then we come with, again, Captain Obvious answers, but I really think it comes down to that of like, talk to professionals and understand statistically and factually speaking what's happening right now. Because that's just fact, right? That's you can tell them, what did that house sell for?
Right.
What's the days on market? These are all just facts that give you the temperature and the opportunity for now. And the what ifs are only as they start to offer and determine, well, what can happen if we put this together, if we talk to Chris, build a certain mortgage plan out. And, so those are where we can really dial into what could happen. But then, best guesses, education, and not from talking heads and people with poor motivations, but understand what could be around the corner here and what are the pros and cons there so that you at least made the decision. Right.
I often tell my client to say, hey, I'm not here to make you do anything you don't want to do. I'm here to give you the information that you need. So when the time is right, you can make the decision for yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Exactly. Right. So it's like educate yourself and then prepare. Yeah. Right. Prepare for either eventuality. Right. If I said, hey, Jesse, honestly, I don't love what's on the market right now. And I understand I might have to compete. So what am I going to do to prepare it? Well, I'm budgeting and I'm putting more money away.
Exactly right.
Building a war chest.
And then just be ready. Yeah, just be ready. We're not going to go find the property that you don't like that much right now and make you, you're not going to go be forced to pull the trigger on it. But when that house is ready, let's just make sure you're ready. So let's get you talking to Chris. Let's get these things in line, in order. So when the time is right, you're able to jump on it.
Yeah. And in that preparation, I am, reality checking like mad, right? On like being able to say like, all right, Jesse, this is what I'd love. And if you're going to say, hey, I'd love it for you too, but this genie's out of wishes here and I can't grant that. And so we need for you to hit, we've sorted this out, Mr. and Mrs. Client. And I understand that these are really the 3 most important things of the 5 things you gave me. Right. So if we want to hit these 3, let's expand that search a little bit, or let's trade this off a little bit and let's be ready. Right. And I just think, and again, I say this with as much empathy as I can for people, and knowing that like and we do. And my wife and I, as we've, moved up, we were in a little apartment behind the VA there downtown, renting, and single family bedroom. And, we've bought and moved up through different real estate here in town. And I look back at what we were able to do. And again, I just say, you have to be smarter than I was, right? Our kids are going to have to be like smarter, more entrepreneurial, like figure it out, more budgeted. Right. And it's just a matter of like, again, you look forward on it and you just say, okay, yeah, you'll be better for this. You'll be tougher for this, but you can own real estate too. You're just going to have to work a little harder than we had to work.
Right. And have those realistic expectations. Yeah, most definitely.
I don't know. It feels like a good coaching pep talk, like, on it all. But yeah, I just, and I think as far as, and the crystal balls, we just don't know, right? The broad swaths of it.
Yeah, there's going to be like a disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast, right? Like, we don't really know.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, though, generally speaking, barring black swan event, I would say, I like to use the analogy of like the weatherman. He's not going to be able to say, hey, it's going to snow like 1:00 on a Saturday afternoon, right? The one that says that is like gambling is probably gonna be wrong, right? Whereas to say, hey, we could see some moisture this weekend, right? That guy's likely, or girl is likely to be right, right? And so I'd say, hey, we don't know exactly when, how fast rates will pace down. We don't know exactly how the populace is going to react to that, as we kind of get election concerns and economic concerns start to stabilize, right? But at some point, it's likely that real estate will continue to go up, because you look at the last 82 years, 74, we've looked at this chart, right?
Yeah.
The last 74 years of the last 82 74 years of the last 82 has gone up. And so it's just a matter of saying, okay, real estate's going to get, and the activity is historically very low. And so we will see more selling. We will see homes prices going up. I feel confident saying that's all going to happen, right? Barring a black swan event. It's just a matter of how fast and when.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, those few years there where they didn't go up, right? It was like 2008, that whole debacle.
Yeah, that's like we say like, so what is that then? It is then 8, is it 7 or 8? 8 of the last 82 have not gone up, not appreciated. 8 years, the last 82 saw depreciation.
Have you?
And like 5 or 6 of them were below 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen much information about like post-election years?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can share that all with you. It's something like 8 of 11 of or 9 of 11 the past elections, the year after the election. So like, for example, 2025, it's sales are going to be higher than the previous year, which is to be expected.
Yeah. And so again, all signs indicate that there's not major activity loss, whether there's a donkey or an elephant in the White House, or whether, it's just a matter of, I think, the uncertainty that we can see some people temporarily maybe pump some brakes. But no, and one important concept though, and I think this is just so important, and I've caught myself using the wrong verbiage around, is the right verbiage, but it gives the wrong impression. And so when we talk about, here we go in Scott. This would be so much easier if I just threw a chart up, but I'm not going to.
I love charts. If you want to send them my way.
Well, I'll send them your way. You can put these out in the email, blast them out, post them on social. But the difference between slowing appreciation and depreciation, right? Do you follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Very, very easy. So when a lot of folks see, homes aren't appreciating at the same level,
right,
versus, they're reducing in value, are two different things.
Without a doubt. I mean, well, coming from 2020, before the pandemic to the first couple of years, right, the appreciation was enormous. And so we're seeing slowing appreciation compared to those years, but it's nowhere. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, because we've all been on the freeway when some sports car just like speeds by you at like 90 miles an hour, and you were going 5 over, and you feel like you're standing still.
Right.
And that's exactly...
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how we felt. We felt like we were standing still all of a sudden. And we feel like we're kind of standing still just because we've seen all this massive appreciation. But then statistically, like, guys, call Jesse, have him run the numbers on it. We're not seeing, like, reduction. Sure, there's some play with price points, and there's unrealistic sellers that started way too high. But really, year-over-year appreciation is very stable here in Northern Arizona.
You're not going backwards on the freeway.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, no, that's ludicrous.
Right.
Which the same. So, Ken, now build on that concept here real quick. This chart, I'm going to share it with you. It's actually coming out in my tomorrow's update. I freaking love this chart because it shows inflation, which is this like steady, guaranteed line going up on this chart. And then embedded in that is the rate of change of inflation.
Okay.
So we see this massive drop in the rate of change of inflation because year-over-year inflation got upwards of like 9+%. About 18 months ago.
Right.
Is that right? About 18 months ago. Yeah, we hit that peak in like fall of 2022. And so now, almost 24 months. And so now like the year-over-year inflation, I mean, somewhere in the mid-2s, right? And so that rate of inflation has come massively down. But what does that mean? No, it's still a positive rate. It still means inflation is moving up. And it was really depressing because, the first thing I thought was like bread and eggs, man, like groceries, like it kills me. Like I used to, I'll cook on the weekends. Like my wife does most of the weeks, and I like to do the fun stuff on the weekends. And so I'm like, I'm going to go cook a meal for the family and, maybe spend like $40-$50 at the grocery. Like now it's like, okay, dude, that's one meal, like $150. And it's like, it kills you. And it's like, that's not changing.
Right.
Unfortunately, like the cost of those goods is not changing. I mean, we're not economists, everybody, but basically to say, like, when we look at these types of things of saying we're slowing that down so that it's a healthier future is what the Fed's been doing. And we're getting more to that normal level of that rate of change, but it's still a forward progress.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat that I'd be curious about is how many years of the past, for example, 100 has there been, not inflation, but deflation?
Very, very little.
Of course, certain events, right? Like,
this chart, I mean, it's very, very little that we've actually seen deflation. Right. And so that's, I mean, and it's, again, you can take this. Here's the coach might say, right? You can take this 2 ways, right? Oh, that's my foot. Did I? I'm not going to. Oh, there we go. I was hanging on the edge this whole time. You can take this 2 ways. You can either, that's what my conditioning coach would say in football. This is like now like PTSD. But yeah, you can either, take these sprints and like dominate it, or you can let it kick you in the ass. And so that's where it's like, hey, you can just know that homes, that's the good thing. There's stability. You're buying something that has stability and will likely continue to go up. The thing is, it's already gone up quite a bit. You're just going to have to deal with that.
Right. Yeah. Going back to the best time to buy was 10 years ago, and the best time to sell is never.
Yeah. And it's not helpful. Sorry, I make terrible, terrible jokes when someone's like, oh man, my brother got a 3% rate and bought this out to this. I'm like, was your brother smarter than you? Or like, whatever. He just got lucky.
Right.
Or
it's not timing the market, right? It's timing the market.
There's this, I'll share this other hysterical social media clip with you. I was watching these guys, and they're like, these guys were just, these comedians were dressed up like the baby boomers or something, like some people in their 50s. Sorry, being more politically correct here. And they were just like, what all these millennials just got wrong is they just don't know how to time the market. I did my one strategic purchase back 40 years ago at an excellent time in the market, and they're just too lazy. It did require me to time my birth, but I was willing to do that, to do my one perfect real estate investment, build all this equity at a perfect time frame.
That's funny.
And all these realtors, it was just hilarious as it goes into it, where it's like, guys, you can't control when you're born.
That kind of brings into a whole nother conversation about the trajectory of homeownership, looking, a decade or longer down the road, with so many homes and so much real estate being owned by the baby boomer generation. and how it's going to pass on and who it's going to pass on to. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm pretty fascinated by. Like, where are we going to be in 10 years in terms of, renting versus owning, and who's going to be doing the renting and owning.
Have you Googled the silver tsunami?
No, I haven't.
You don't know about the silver tsunami?
I need to get a pen and pad. You're dropping knowledge on it.
No, basically it's the single largest wealth transition that we have ever seen.
Oh, sure. Okay. I just haven't heard it called that.
Yeah. So it's basically saying exactly what you just said.
Right.
Is like kind of the catchphrase for it or whatever. Whether it's assets or market funds, retirement, basically total assets in the wealth distribution.
Right. Yeah.
That's then going to be managed somehow and shifted out. So yeah, lots of unknowns there. I guess as far as, is there any other advice you'd give to that would-be buyer or seller right now that you think they need to hear ending 2024, heading into 2025? Anything else there, Jesse?
Yeah, I would say just in general, work with someone who does this for a living, whether it's me or it's someone else. Having conversations with our family over Thanksgiving.
Yep.
That's great, right? But maybe not base all of your decisions off of what your uncle has to say after a few glasses of wine.
That, and can I do one more plug on top of that? And this may offend, but I'm okay with that. There's actually been about a 30%, I should have this better, 30 to 40% attrition in my industry, right? The number of licenses renewed just this last year because, it's tough. It's tough times, right? I know there's been an attrition in the realtor industry.
Oh, yeah. Well. I heard,
yeah.
Don't quote me. I heard we went from 1.6 to 1.3 in the past, I don't know, short.
It's significant,
yeah.
Right? And so I know a lot of people, it's scary. You want to find someone you trust, but oftentimes maybe the first name or the first person that comes to you may not currently be full-time.
Right.
And I would be careful with that.
Yeah, that uncle who's giving you the advice might have his real estate license.
Yeah, I'm happy to help you out. I do a couple of these a year or something, and I'm gonna say, vet your own. There are some outstanding. They're very far and few between of some outstanding agents that do keep up their pace on market knowledge and negotiation and everything, and whether they do. So I'm not faulting any particular individual or group here, but it's very seldom. There are many people that are carrying a license and would love to do a loan or to sell you a home that don't live and breathe this every day.
Right, exactly.
And you're going to get a different product. Mm-hmm. So I would say, and people know, and I hope that that's one of the positives from the NAR settlement. Mm-hmm. And just, especially with it being a tough, affordable area anyways, for people to understand if you're going to be getting top services and top representation and advice, and you really want to be in the best situation, oftentimes you're paying the professionals the same.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Whether they are a part-time agent, or a full-time in it to win it agent.
Well, even if you're not, oftentimes paying a little bit more will benefit you, right? It's like if someone does charge more than another person, there might be a reason. I mean, they could just be shooting. It's
no, but that's there is. It's a more important time than ever to be aware.
Right.
It's your dollar, your decision, and talk to some people.
Right.
Interviews, don't just take, because I think too often in real estate, people just go with the first name or first because they're nervous or whatever. And like,
80% of buyers go with the first agent. I'm pretty sure it's what it is.
Yeah. And it's like, no, we've had some great opportunities in talking with people that thought, whether it was with a lender or realtor, that they thought this was all I could do, or this is what I had to do.
Right.
And then being able to actually talk to some, we have people in homes right now that were able to find solutions because they talk to more people.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I know the lending process a little bit, right?
Sure.
But I would never say, no, talk to me instead of talking to Chris. I'm always going to refer them to you because you're the professional, and you, given their situation, you're going to have creative solutions. And so that's where it's beneficial to work with people who do this. Like you said, they live and breathe it, not a part-time.
Yeah, and there's hope. Hopefully we haven't been like Debbie Downer or casting the cloud, but no, there's so much hope in this. I just, guys, reach out to Jesse. don't just feel like, oh my gosh, social media says, or my uncle that had his license back in the 90s, keyword there had, right? So not to fault him, but yeah, no, this was awesome, Jesse. Appreciate you coming on. It's going to be an awesome year. I think for those that are going to take their future by the hands, right? And make that's a coachable moment. I was thinking you should come up with some branding. This should be like Coach Jesse, Coach Calvin, your real estate coach here, helping you buy the home. But basically, make the tough decisions. And gosh, man, when you're moved in, all the haters, they can just keep hating, right?
Yeah, well, this has been fun. I didn't expect to get into the details, but it's been great. It's always nice, kind of just talking business with you. So.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah. All right, we appreciate it, Jesse. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.